Hey folks, this is Best in Slot. Welcome back to our look at the dev diaries for Prehistoric Kingdom. The new one just dropped for August 2022. It's going to give us some pretty cool previews of not just the next 2 updates on the game, we're going to find out about that in just a second, but also what's in the plan for future down the line as well. Some pretty cool stuff, should be fairly low-key and quick today, but you know I always manage to drag things out unnecessarily. Anyway, 2 things very quickly to say. It's been a little while since we did our PK series. Obviously I've been away and it's one that takes a little bit of time, but we should be back this weekend. I want to thank everyone. I kind of feel a little bit guilty about it, I'm not going to lie, but my items on the workshop have done really well. Loads of people have subscribed to them. They're like up there in popularity, so that's really cool to see, even if I feel a little bit bad about it. But I'm glad that people are enjoying the items. I'm getting this weird little Photoshop issue with this black flashing box over here. Got no idea what it's about. It's never happened before. Let's hope it goes away. Nope, there it is already. Cool. Right, moving on. God damn it. So, there are 2 updates coming. The first is going to be the baby patch, and the baby patch is going to contain 2 main things. The first is these signs. So you can see these signs. Yes, I've tried to do this video before, that's why it's scribbled all over everywhere. These signs on the right hand side. So we've got some general ones, you know, don't tap on the glass, no flash photography. I'm going to stop drawing because it's doing that. No climbing on fences, etc, etc. General signs you'd see around the zoo, but of course themed around prehistoric creatures. Over here, I'm just going to deal with the box. Oh my god. But what is that? Over here, we have the animal info signs. So you can see here we've got the Nasutoceratops name, we've got its era, you know, where it lived, when it lived, and then we've got where it lived, its location in the world at that time, and then a lovely big picture. And these are going to work similar to the Planet Zoo ones in that, as far as I know, they're just like a blank item, and when you click on it, you'll be able to choose from a list of close by species. So this is only a baby patch, as I say, but the other thing coming as well is also Steam achievements for people who are that way inclined. I'm not, I could not care less, but for people who do care, it's an option, and that's cool. Options are cool. Right, so that is the baby... Go away. That's the baby patch. That's going to be the next patch, and then that's all building up to the bigger patch, which is patch 1.1, which is going to include obviously more species and just bigger things in general. So expect that baby patch relatively soon. What is in the pipeline? As the next update gets closer, some of the team have already begun work on future species and new gameplay mechanics. We've settled on what we think is going to be a very satisfying research system that you'll hear more about in a later blog post. So we know that the Coelophysis and the Dilophosaurus and the other dinosaur I've forgotten at this point in time are all basically done. They're going to be coming in 1.1 as far as I know. The next big patch, I don't know when that's going to be, but it's on the way. And because they're nearly done, obviously that means future dinosaurs and future species and future mechanics can now start to be worked on. It's kind of like when a normal game just kind of nearly finishes its development and they're kind of winding down or doing QA testing and stuff like that. And at that point, the modelers will maybe start to work on a DLC, things like that. And I'm very interested to see what this new research system is going to be. At the moment, you basically just accrue research points over time and then you shove them into your dinosaurs, but it'd be cool to get a more interesting system. Ooh, no black box, how exciting. One of the big things being worked on at the moment is animal locomotion. We're going to spend a little bit of time with that now, see some really cool videos as well. At the heart of animal AI is their locomotion. How they move is the foundation for what they can do. The more flexible their animation and movement systems are, the more behaviours we can add onto them. We've been making a lot of changes in the surface of dynamic hunting, very exciting, combat, and ensuring that animals can get into position, i.e. drinking spots, eating, social animations, as seamlessly as possible. No stop start, no awkward idle turn. I'm sure that's not meant to be a dig at another dinosaur game, but yeah. Though we're still experimenting, we thought we'd show off what we've been doing. Please note that all the examples below do not include foot IKs, so there will be some sliding. Now, the page does not actually explain what IKs is, so I'm going to explain what IKs is as best as I can to my abilities. IK basically means inverse kinematics, and so if you think about it, I'm going to draw it. This is going to be awful with the black box, but bear with me. So if you've got... Oh, it's going okay. You've got a dude, right? Here's our dude. There's his body. There's his legs. Bear with me. I'm just going to give him one arm. So there's a shoulder. There's the upper arm. There's the lower arm. There's the hand. Actually, I'm just going to do a leg. This is a better idea. So there's a leg, there's a leg, there's a leg. So with forward kinematics, if you want your character to walk, you kind of position this joint here. It rotates into a walking movement, and that informs how these parts of the leg then move. Basically, think of it as top down. So the the closer to the center of the body is, that's what determines the movement of the limbs. With inverse kinematics, what the game will actually do, and they do this a lot in robotics in general as well, is they'll look at the position of the foot, and then they'll they'll go backwards basically. So if the foot has, let's say there's a step here, and the foot has landed there, they'll then work out from the position of the foot against this step, where the legs should be placed from that point, if that makes sense. So instead of working from the hip down, they're working from the foot up to determine how the animation will play out. Now, the reason this is actually important, and the reason this is good for locomotion, is because if you have like a really rocky environment, which of course you can do in Prehistoric Kingdom, and you have forward kinematics, the feet can end up in really weird places because you're not basing it on where the foot is against this surface. You're doing it based on the hip movement and based on the thigh movement, etc., etc. Whereas with inverse kinematics, it should be a lot better for dinosaurs walking along unstable environments, because the foot determines what everything else is. The foot can go anywhere, and then everything else will sort of move into a natural position around that. It's really good for awkward environments, which Prehistoric Kingdom has a lot of, and that's why they use it in robotics, and that's why a lot of games with natural movement will use inverse kinematics rather than forward kinematics. Hopefully that made sense. Hopefully I was correct. Right, so I'm going to show you some GIFs now. Yes, GIFs, come at me. And here is the first one. Bear in mind, as per usual, these have been blown up far bigger than they were meant to be, so that's why they're a little bit blurry. But we get to see those locomotion systems in action. Worth remembering, as we've already said, this does not have the kinematics applied to it. So, let's talk about these. To start, animal movement speeds are now more progressive. Organically slowing down, speeding up, and shifting into a run makes animals far more responsive and lively. For animals that switch between quadruped and biped, they'll still need a transitional animation. But you can see here with our Tyrannosaurus Rex that the difference between the movement speeds isn't quite so stop-start. It feels like it's going into a run, and then there's a little bit of jogging. I mean, you're going for a run, you want to get into a sprint nice and quickly, but it's not walk, sprint. It doesn't feel like two distinct speeds. There's a bit of a transition between the two that makes it look a lot more naturalistic. We've got another one here. When walking, animals can move in 8 different directions. This allows us to easily reposition creatures by simply asking them to walk forwards, strafe, or backwards. And of course, they'd also assumably be able to walk, sort of, if you imagine a compass, northeast, southwest, northwest, southeast, right? Obviously, this can introduce sliding, so we'll try to resolve it with IKs the best we can. Yeah, I can imagine how that would be a slightly awkward animation to do, but again, if the IKs are done well, then the foot position determines the rest of the body, and hopefully the feet don't have to slide across the ground. Really interesting though, so already quite a detailed locomotion system should make our animals feel very naturalistic, should allow them to handle these complex, pain in the ass environments that we're building, allow them to navigate that nice and well and look natural in the process. Again, not trying to dig down on other games, but this is a problem with Jurassic World Evolution 2, the last one in particular, where there's a lot of sprinting and stopping and sprinting and stopping and kind of awkward turns in place and stuff like that, and I think PK is definitely trying to avoid those same issues. And the third one, go away Black Box, you can't see it, but I'm suffering. As you can see, we have also got dynamic momentum on head, body and tail depending on how fast an animal is walking forwards or backwards. We found that adding these little touches helps to make the animal feel more grounded, especially since they're reactive. So they are dynamic, these reactions to the body, they're not, baked in animations, depending on how fast the dinosaur's moving, and I'm sure directionality and all this kind of jazz, blah, 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 blah. Will determine how the head moves and how the body moves and how the tail moves. So again, it should really just hammer home this feeling of these being real animals, and that's really the point. To an extent, you should be able to sit there and watch them and forget that you're in a video game in a way, because they just feel that naturalistic and that grounded in the world. And they're clearly putting a lot of work in to make sure that happens. So very excited about that. Right, moving on. These are just some of the changes we're making to core Locomotion. There are a few more experimental but very cool things we've left out of today's blog post, so keep an eye out. Not sure what they're going to be, but very excited. As a team, we're extremely happy with the direction things are heading, and once we've locked down our final pipeline, we'll do a full showcase of everything the animals can do. Once animal locomotion is 100% sorted, we can start working towards hunting and combat, which is of course super exciting as well, because those are things we like to mess around with. for me, a dinosaur park isn't really complete until your dinosaurs can break out and eat your guests. That's an inherent part of the experience. So that's really cool to hear. And of course, it makes sense to ground the actual... If you're going to have dynamic hunting, truly dynamic hunting and dynamic combat, then having the basal having the basal locomotion being as good as possible is obviously a really good starting point for those more advanced systems. Nearly done, just a couple things to look at, a couple more screens. We've got this one here, I'm going to have to do that. Basically, this is talking about guest AI. So at the moment, the guests in the game are a little bit stupid, and there's two main problems. The first is that they walk through everything and each other. You know, there's lots of ghosts going on, there's lots of, it's a big old orgy. So there's a lot of walking through objects and through each other. And there's a lot of also sort of walking up onto things. You'll have seen if you watched my first Prehistoric Kingdom series we did since the game came into early access, where the guy just, they keep standing on like the entrance sign, raised roof thing that they obviously couldn't get into realistically, but they managed to make their way up there regardless. What this is basically is a simulation, so they're testing out the guests' ability to avoid walking into things, right? So every blue dot you see on this map, let's say there's something really popular over here. Go away. Really popular here in the bottom left corner, that's where all the guests are going there. All the guests are kind of walking towards that area. Every blue dot here is a guest, and that guest has avoided walking into anything. So you can see it's not 100% perfect. There's a little gaggle of red here, you know, there's 4 or 5 red ones. But by and large, hundreds of guests, and the simulation is absolutely knocking it out of the park. Every single guest here has avoided walking into another guest. So it's not just not walking into objects, it's not walking into each other, which again, kind of like with the dinosaurs, just makes your guests feel much more real, much more grounded, and like they actually exist in that universe. And the other cool thing about this, as it mentions on the dev diary, is that this will actually factor into your park planning. If you have like a super thin path here and all these guests have to walk down it because they can no longer walk into each other, you can have this really claustrophobic, you know, this tidal wave, this traffic jam of guests basically. So now if you have an area of your park that's going to have lots of guests, you're going to have to account for that with wider paths and other places to split off and kind of just separate your guests out a little bit. Otherwise they're all going to, you know, get stuck like this and bounce into each other and stuff like that. And then there's a little heat map there as well. This will be, I'm assuming this is a in-game tool, or will be eventually, just to see how packed your guests are in certain areas, so you can know at a glance where to add. You know, you can see these areas are a bit messy, so maybe you'd want to thicken the path here. You know, add like another, add like an extra layer there, or even, you know, add like an extra side route. That's parks tend to do. They tend to have like little loopy paths around, just to split people off and allow people to go in multiple directions, and hopefully alleviate some of these guest traffic jams. Alright, so some exciting stuff on the way. The locomotion is the big thing for me. Very, very excited about that. Although I've got to say, I say the locomotion is the big thing. These signs, super excited. It's these little things for me, these little signs and stuff like that, that really helps make a park feel like a park. So I'm really, really excited to stick those in my zoos as well, when we actually do make a bloody zoo. But I think even in my Jurassic Park, we'll start to integrate some more zoo-like elements in our tour. Stuff like this. And yeah, some exciting stuff on the way. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Like I say, we'll be back probably Saturday or Sunday with our park build, with our Steam Workshop integrated park build thingamajiggy. And we're also going to do a workshop highlight series, which will start this weekend. And we're going to take a look at the best stuff that's been uploaded on the Steam Workshop for Prehistoric Kingdom, over than my own stuff, of course. There's some really, really cool stuff there already, though, so we're going to start doing that weekly. And I've got a little something else planned for Jurassic World Evolution, so busy end to the week, but very exciting stuff all the same. Throw me a like down below if you enjoyed the video. I'll see you lovely folks very soon. You can check out this dev diary link down below if you want to do that in the description. There's some really nice, I want to shout out Warpath in particular. There's, you know, some community spotlight stuff with these really nice habitats. There's 2 beautiful habitats, but Warpaths in particular, I was just like, yeah, that's gorgeous. And that's in the community spotlight section. You can go check that on the dev diary itself. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll see you lovely folks very soon. Cheers, much love as always. Bye-bye.
Reaching out.